most people start with possibility. And all of these words started with P's, so I thought about a pea pod. A pea pod to me is like nature's Ziploc bag. It's really very clever that if you open up a pea pod, there's this one string, and if you pull it, the pea pod bursts open. I have never seen a pea pod with 10 peas, so technically speaking, this is not biologically correct, but these were elements that if you're starting a business or growing your business, you've got to consider. One, is it possible? And I go back to goals. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Do you have the skills? Blanchard talked about competence and confidence. Do you have the skills? And do you think you could do a great job? Do you think you're going to be the best at it? Passion, that kind of builds into the passion. It's great for you to be passionate about your business idea, but again, I would argue it is more important that your potential customer or client is passionate about the problem that you're going to solve. So being able to speak their language, I can save them time, the benefits, I can save them money, being able to quantify it, 3 months to market, which will save on average X. Toss that data at them, okay? Your first 10 sentences. And it doesn't have to be 10 sentences all at once. It could actually be 2 sentences, and then, some small chat, and then 2 other sentences. Purpose. What's your business about? And basically, what problem does it solve? Your business is about them. They've got the check, or the credit card, or the purchasing order. How are you planning your business? And I'm going to go back to Don. He raised a point. If you're doing X, what about all those other functions in the business? Typically, I think about a business like a spider. A spider has 8 legs. In a business, you've got the operations side, the marketing side, the sales side, the production. You've got a bunch of different things. So how are you going to plan that out? And planning also has to do with the sales cycle. So typically you need, I keep saying this list of 20 or 30, you've got to have this active list of ideal clients that you're really, really working. Who are the people that are going to be involved in your organization? Not necessarily talking about employees here. What about a board of advisors? What about former employees?
Strategic partners.
Strategic partners. What about specific strategic partners? What about partners that literally put in money? The legal definition of partners. What's your process? A few books I'm going to toss out here. Anyone ever heard of the E-Myth? Has nothing to do with ecstasy or anything like that. It's E-Myth. I just wanted to make sure you're all awake. Okay. It stands for the Entrepreneur's Myth. And it's by Michael Gerber. And essentially he says you've got 2 choices. You can work in your business, or you can work on your business. When you're working in your business, it probably is like a job. I heard you mention that 80-hour work week. Well, there's the second book I'm going to have you write down, and that's the 4-day work week. It's not entirely possible, and the author admits it. But the concept is, if you really have a process, Michael Gerber uses the word system, you, the entrepreneur, have separated yourself from the managerial portion of your business, the technical portion of your business, and you focus on the entrepreneurial part, which is coming up with a strategy. Because you do need someone to manage the business, and you do need someone who's really good at doing whatever that is. If you are the person that's really good at doing whatever that is in your business, then you do need a strategic partner or a virtual assistant, or find someone who really wants to be a part-time manager to manage that, even if it's only 3 hours a week. But you as the entrepreneur need to be having that vision. You know how in your company you had the vision if the market changes, if the industry changes, if the trends change, what element, what little piece of what I do well can I transfer and transform into the next 5-year business cycle? Performance. Definitely got to perform. No doubt about it. A lot of entrepreneurs are actually really good at this. As Don mentioned, they don't get a chance. This person sitting on the other side says, what if you get hit by a bus? And you're like, but wait a minute, I'm not going to get hit by a bus. Really? I'm not available. I don't have a job. They're like, sorry, I don't want to deal with you. So finding a way to perform, I'd like to put it out here, just as you were starting to do presentations. As you get clearer on what your SMART goal is, as it relates to being an entrepreneur, and I would actually encourage you to look at the same kind of methodology for getting a job. As you go about getting a job, what's your SMART goal? Do you have strategy? Is it the right strategy? And are you executing on the strategy? So this is applicable to both. But for an entrepreneur, I would encourage you to think about ways that you can begin providing your products and services and going through the entire sales process, even if, for whatever reason, you're doing it on a volunteer basis. So if presentations, in your case, are what you do, you may need to do a few complimentary ones. But please, do it for one of your ideal clients. Do it for one of those stretch folks. Okay? And create a contract. Create an invoice. At the end of that invoice, it can say, complimentary services. If normally your services are 50 hours, you can give them the 1-hour preview, whatever that is. Document who you went after, what was the process, what worked well, what didn't work well. Ask for feedback along the way so that you're creating that network of people who you've touched in your life as an entrepreneur. People have got to know that you perform. And just as you know, people in organizations come and go. So if you only touch one person, it's possible they're not going to be around the next time you go. Really critical. It may not be an issue here, but a lot of times new entrepreneurs sort of say, oh, I'm new, I don't really know, I'm not going to price, I don't know who wants to buy my stuff, everybody might want to buy my stuff. Get rich in a niche. Know who you're selling to, know why they're buying, know what's in their pocketbook. Okay, so you're going to be like Capital One. What's in your wallet? You want to know. So that you're pricing appropriately. Again, didn't really talk about it, sort of glossed over it. I use that what's your current salary times 5 just as a general benchmark for what your annual revenues for your entrepreneurial venture need to be. But the fact of the matter is, running an entrepreneurial venture, you've got revenue coming in, you've got expenses, and with a sales cycle of 6 to 8 months, you've got your own salary that's got to be paid, you've got your electric, and your cable, and your cell phone, and you've got stuff. So you've got all these expenses. And unfortunately, the expenses tend to happen pretty consistently before the revenue comes in. That's called cash flow. So figuring it out is really important. And if you price too low, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Okay. You know that when you're looking for a job. You have a certain level that you're looking for. Okay. So, and then preference. This preference is really about the consumer or client. What's their preference? Kind of goes back to the psychographics or demographics. Yeah, I've had debates, should preference go closer to the passion of the client? Yes and no. I think that the reason I put it after performance and price, once you start a relationship with a customer or a client, and they see what you do, and if your ears are open, they begin to tell you what else is really bugging them, what they don't like, what they need. And essentially, you as an entrepreneur, I talked about it a little bit earlier, the buying decision is really emotional. People buy based on emotion. People typically buy avoid pain, or they may buy to get more pleasure. Of course, all of these are based on legal purchases versus illegal purchases. But as an entrepreneur, you want to think about, when do you hear your ideal client say, I love when my employees come in time, I love when my video production is done excellently, I love when, or how many times do you hear them say, I want, or I wish? And then, by the same token, how many times do you hear them say, I hate when that invoice isn't paid, I hate when blah, 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 blah. And this is, I'm sorry, and this is, I'm blanking here, it's another negative. Love and wish, so this is positive. Hate, what? Something like that. I'm blanking as I'm standing here. But this is kind of the positive and the negative. This is really strong, and this is strong and in the current. Although it's based on past experience, this is more in the future. So it's a matrix designed to sort of get into people's heads. And if you're listening based on that, and if you're asking questions. Now, as an entrepreneur, you'd probably go in with some standard questions based on their current, organization goals or department goals for this quarter, next quarter, for the next year. You'd be asking, something like, what's working well? What are the gaps? What are the needs? Okay. So these are extremely generic. But in your conversation, it is less, and this is a whole other workshop, which I'm not going to do now, but it is less about, I can do, it's less about you. It is more about understanding this, and in fact, I would never write a proposal if I don't have clarity on those things. If someone comes in, if I come into somebody and they're like, oh, Fran, nice, yeah, that's great, would you do a proposal for us? And I'm not clear on their goals, what's working, what are their gaps, and what are their needs. Needs kind of equate to problems. I not only want to know what do they need, I mean, they might need 1,000 employees, but are they going to get them? Needs, I want to know, are you the decision maker? Is it a really big problem? Is there any urgency? Do you have a budget for it? Do you want to do something now? If you don't do something now, what will happen? And let me share with you, based on what I think you're hearing, what I think I'm hearing, my perspective, and then let me share with you how I might provide a solution. Based on that, does that sound like that's a good fit? If they say no, I might ask some additional questions just to clarify, write them in my notebook, kind of like a scientist. But they would go probably back down to the bottom of the list, and I'll recycle through, but they're not going to be the first ones. I'm not going to write a proposal that says, here are all my great ideas, and then I would do